Hey warriors, welcome back to the channel. They sold you a lie and you bought it. They told you that wanting more makes you greedy, that ambition makes you shallow, that complexity makes you stressed, that real happiness comes from having less, needing less, being less. So you simplified. You downsized your dreams. You decluttered your ambitions. You told yourself you were focusing on what matters. And what happened? You became invisible. You became irrelevant. You became someone who's easy to ignore, easy to replace, easy to forget. Because you made yourself small on purpose and called it enlightenment. And here's the part that should make you furious. The people who sold you this philosophy, they're not living it. The influencers preaching minimalism have multiple income streams. The gurus telling you to want less are building empires. The celebrities posting about simple living own 5 properties. They convinced you to simplify your life while they complicate theirs strategically, building networks, accumulating leverage, expanding their reach. They're not stressed from having too much. They're powerful from having exactly enough in all the right places. And while you were busy fitting your life into a tiny house and a gratitude journal, they were building the systems that ensure you'll never threaten their position. This is strategic surrender dressed up as self-care. This is you removing yourself from competition and calling it peace. This is voluntary castration of your ambition, and they've convinced you to feel good about it. Machiavelli understood something that terrifies most people. The world belongs to those who complicate strategically, not those who simplify obediently. The simple life isn't freedom. It's a cage you built for yourself while they handed you the blueprints and called it wisdom. Stay till the end, because I'm about to show you why every year you spend living simply is a year you're training yourself to accept less, want less, and become less, while others are compounding power, influence, and options you'll never recover. Let me paint you a picture. You're scrolling through social media. You see another post about minimalism, another video about living with less, another quote about how happiness comes from within, not from material things, and it resonates with you. Because you're tired, you're overwhelmed, you're stressed by the complexity of modern life. So this message, this promise that you can opt out, that you can simplify, that you can find peace by having less, it sounds like salvation. So you start implementing it. You get rid of stuff. You cancel subscriptions. You cut back on commitments. You tell yourself you're focusing on what really matters: family, health, peace of mind. And at first it feels good. It feels like relief, like you've discovered some secret that everyone else is too caught up in the rat race to see. You look at people still chasing more money, more success, more stuff, and you feel sorry for them. You feel enlightened. You feel free. But here's what you don't see yet. Here's what takes months or years to reveal itself. You're disappearing. You're becoming less relevant in your industry because you're not networking, not building relationships, not staying visible. You're becoming less valuable to your employer because you're not developing new skills, not taking on complex projects, not making yourself indispensable. You're becoming less interesting to potential partners because you've shrunk your world so small that you have nothing to offer except contentment. And financially, you're falling further behind every single day. Because while you were simplifying, the people who understand power were complicating. They were building multiple income streams. They were investing in assets that appreciate. They were creating systems that work while they sleep. They were expanding their network, their skills, their leverage. And the gap between you and them, the gap between the simplified and the strategic, that gap is widening exponentially. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you'll look around and realize the people who succeeded aren't the ones who wanted less. They're the ones who wanted more and figured out how to get it. The people with options, with influence, with security, they're not simple. They're complex, strategically, deliberately complex. And you? You simplified yourself right out of the game. This is the dangerous mistake. Not that you wanted peace. Peace is fine. Not that you wanted to reduce stress. Stress management is smart. The mistake is thinking that simplification is the path to those things. It's not. Simplification is the path to irrelevance, to powerlessness, to becoming someone who doesn't matter because they've systematically removed themselves from every arena where mattering is possible. Machiavelli wrote, "Men rise from one ambition to another. First, they seek to secure themselves against attack, and then they attack others. But you stopped at zero. You didn't even secure yourself. You just withdrew. And withdrawal doesn't protect you. It just makes you an easier target when the world inevitably comes for what little you have left. Let me show you how this plays out in real scenarios. You're working a job. It's fine. It pays the bills. And you've adopted this simple living philosophy, so you tell yourself you don't need more. You don't need the promotion. You don't need the raise. You're content with enough. So you stop competing. You stop politicking. You stop building relationships with decision makers. You stop developing skills that make you promotable. Because that's all complexity, right? That's all the rat race you've opted out of. And then one day, the company restructures. Layoffs are coming. And guess who's on the list? You. Because you made yourself simple. You made yourself replaceable. You didn't build the complex web of relationships that makes firing you politically costly. You didn't develop the complex skill set that makes replacing you operationally difficult. You didn't create the complex value that makes losing you strategically stupid. You kept it simple. And simple is the first thing they cut. Every single time. Or maybe you're an entrepreneur. You start a business. And you embrace simple living, so you keep it small. You don't want to deal with employees, too complicated. You don't want to scale, too stressful. You don't want multiple revenue streams, too much to manage. You just want enough. Enough to live on, enough to be comfortable, enough to not have to think too hard. And that works. For a while. Until a competitor enters the market. And they're not keeping it simple. They're hiring the best people. They're scaling aggressively. They're building multiple products, multiple revenue streams, multiple channels. They're complicating strategically. And within 2 years, they've completely dominated the market you thought you had. And your simple little business? It's dying. Because simple doesn't compete with strategic complexity. It doesn't even register as competition. It's just a speed bump on the way to dominance. Or maybe it's relationships. You've simplified your social circle. Cut out the people who are too much drama or too demanding or too ambitious. You want simple friendships, low maintenance, no expectations, just easy hanging out. And sure, that's comfortable. But here's what you've also cut out. Opportunity. Because complex social networks are where opportunities come from. The demanding friend who's building a company might have offered you equity. The ambitious friend who's always networking might have introduced you to your next business partner. The dramatic friend who's got big emotions might also have big connections. But you'll never know, because you simplified them out of your life. You see the pattern? Every time you choose simplicity, you're choosing limitation. You're choosing to reduce your surface area for luck. You're choosing to narrow your options. You're choosing to make yourself less valuable, less connected, less capable. And you're doing it voluntarily. You're doing it enthusiastically. Because someone convinced you that this is wisdom, that this is enlightenment, that this is the path to happiness. But it's not. It's the path to irrelevance. And irrelevance is the most dangerous place to be. Because irrelevant people don't get opportunities. They don't get respect. They don't get protected when things go wrong. They don't get mourned when they disappear. They're just forgotten. And you can't build a legacy. You can't create impact. You can't leave a mark on the world from a position of irrelevance. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but I don't want to be stressed. I don't want to be overwhelmed. I don't want to sacrifice my mental health for success. And I get it. I do. But here's what you're missing. Complexity doesn't create stress. Unmanaged complexity creates stress. Strategic complexity, the kind that powerful people build, that doesn't create stress. It creates leverage. It creates options. It creates security. Because when you have multiple income streams, losing one doesn't destroy you. When you have a robust network, losing one relationship doesn't isolate you. When you have diverse skills, losing one job doesn't define you. Simple living makes you fragile, because when you only have one income stream, one set of skills, one small circle, you're completely vulnerable to any disruption. Lose that job, you're destroyed. Lose that relationship, you're alone. Lose that one thing you were good at because technology changed, you're obsolete. That's not peace, that's precarity. That's one bad day away from catastrophe, and you chose it because someone told you that having less would make you free. If you're starting to see how this philosophy has been keeping you small, ripe now. So let's talk about what strategic complexity actually looks like. Because I'm not telling you to just do more random stuff. I'm not telling you to be busy for the sake of busy. I'm telling you to be strategically complex. To complicate your life in ways that compound your power, your options, and your leverage. And there's a huge difference. Random complexity is taking on more responsibilities that don't serve your goals. That's stress. Strategic complexity is building systems that multiply your effectiveness. That's power. Random complexity is saying yes to everything. Strategic complexity is saying yes to the right things that create compounding returns. Random complexity makes you scattered. Strategic complexity makes you formidable. Here's the framework. 3 domains where strategic complexity separates the powerful from the irrelevant. Income, influence, and capability. Domain 1, income complexity. Simple living advocates tell you to be content with one job, one salary, one source of income, and they frame this as security, as simplicity, as less stress. But it's the opposite. One income source is the most vulnerable position you can be in, because if that source dries up, layoff, company failure, industry disruption, you go from comfortable to desperate instantly. That's not security, that's a ticking time bomb. Strategic complexity means multiple income streams. Not because you're greedy, because you're smart. You have your primary income, the job, the business, whatever pays most of your bills. But you also have secondary streams. Maybe it's investments generating passive income. Maybe it's a side business. Maybe it's consulting work. Maybe it's royalties from something you created. The specific doesn't matter. What matters is this. If one stream disappears, your life doesn't collapse. And here's the part simple living advocates never tell you. Multiple income streams don't necessarily mean multiple jobs. They mean building assets that work without you. That's the complexity. You're not trading more time for more money. You're building systems that generate money while you sleep. That's leverage. That's power. And yes, building those systems is complex. It requires learning. It requires initial effort. It requires strategic thinking. But once built, they create the kind of security that simple living promises but never delivers. Look at anyone wealthy. Anyone with real financial security. Do they have one income stream? Never. They have multiple. Investments, businesses, real estate, royalties, equity, advisory roles. They've complicated their income strategically so that no single point of failure can destroy them. And while simple living advocates are telling you to be grateful for your one paycheck, these people are building empires on the principle that Machiavelli understood. It is better to be impetuous than cautious, because fortune is a woman, and if you wish to dominate her, you must beat and strike her. Fortune doesn't reward the simple. It rewards the aggressive, the strategic, the complex. Domain 2, influence complexity. Simple living tells you to shrink your social circle, cut out toxic people, focus on your close relationships, keep it simple. And sure, cutting toxic people is smart, but the way this gets implemented, you end up with a tiny circle of people who are just like you. Same industry, same income level, same worldview, and you call this authentic. You call this real. But what it actually is, it's limiting. Strategic complexity means building a network that's diverse, expansive, and valuable. You have your close circle, the people you trust, the people you love. But you also have weak ties, people in different industries, people at different levels, people with different skills and resources, because opportunities don't come from your close circle. Your close circle already knows what you know. Opportunities come from weak ties, from the person you met once who happens to know someone who needs exactly what you offer. And this is complex. It requires networking. It requires maintaining relationships that aren't emotionally fulfilling. It requires showing up to events when you'd rather stay home. It requires effort. But the payoff? When you need something, a job, a connection, an opportunity, a favor, you have a network that can deliver. When you're simple, when you've shrunk your circle to 5 people, you have 5 options. That's it. And if those 5 can't help you, you're on your own. People with power understand this. They build complex networks. They maintain relationships across industries, across levels, across geographies. Not because they're fake, because they're strategic, because they understand that influence is a network effect. The more nodes you're connected to, the more powerful you become. The simpler your network, the more isolated and powerless you are. Domain 3, capability complexity. Simple living tells you to focus on one thing, master one skill, be an expert in one narrow domain. And they frame this as depth, as expertise, as being really good at what you do. But here's the problem. One skill makes you replaceable. One specialty makes you vulnerable to technological change. One domain makes you obsolete the moment that domain becomes irrelevant. Strategic complexity means building a diverse skill set. You have your primary skill, the thing you're known for, the thing that pays your bills. But you also have secondary skills. Maybe you're a software engineer who also understands marketing. Maybe you're a designer who also understands business strategy. Maybe you're a writer who also understands data analysis. These combinations are what make you irreplaceable, because you can operate at intersections that specialists can't. And yes, this is harder. Learning multiple skills takes time. Maintaining multiple competencies requires effort. But the payoff? You become the person who can do things others can't. You become the translator between departments, the integrator between disciplines, the person who sees connections others miss. That's not stress, that's leverage. That's the kind of complexity that makes you valuable, indispensable, and impossible to replace. Look at anyone at the top of their field. Are they simple? Are they narrow specialists? Sometimes, but more often, they're polymaths. They're people who've strategically complicated their skill set to create unique combinations that nobody else has. Steve Jobs wasn't just a technologist. He understood design, storytelling, and business. Elon Musk isn't just an engineer. He understands physics, manufacturing, marketing, and finance. These aren't simple people. They're strategically complex. And that complexity is their moat. It's what makes them irreplaceable. Now, let me address the real reason people embrace simple living. It's not because they've discovered some enlightened truth. It's because they're scared. Scared of competition, scared of failure, scared of the pressure that comes with actually trying to build something significant. So they retreat, they shrink, they make themselves small, and they find a philosophy that makes that fear look like wisdom. But fear disguised as wisdom is still fear. And operating from fear never leads to power. It leads to safety, maybe, comfort, possibly, but never power, never influence, never legacy. And deep down, you know this. Deep down, you know that when you chose to simplify, you were choosing to opt out. You were choosing to stop competing. You were choosing to make yourself small enough that failure wouldn't hurt as much. Because if you don't try for much, you can't fail at much. But here's what you're missing. Not trying is a failure in itself. Not competing is losing by default. Making yourself small doesn't protect you from pain. It guarantees you'll never experience the kind of success that makes the pain worth it. You've traded the risk of significant failure for the certainty of insignificant existence. And that's not wisdom. That's cowardice with a marketing budget. Machiavelli understood that men are driven by two forces, fear and ambition. And the men who let fear win, the men who choose safety over significance, simplicity over strategy, those men don't get remembered. They don't build empires. They don't change anything. They just exist, quietly, simply, irrelevantly. And then they die. And within a generation, nobody remembers they were ever here. Is that what you want? To be forgotten? To have lived so simply, so safely, so small that your absence makes no difference to anyone? Because that's what simple living delivers. That's the end game. A life so uncomplicated that when it ends, the world continues exactly as it was. No ripple, no impact, no legacy, just nothing. If this is making you uncomfortable, if you're realizing that simple living was never about peace, it was about avoiding the discomfort of being significant, hit that like button. It tells me you're ready for the truth, and it helps this message reach others who need to hear it. So, what's the alternative? What does it look like to reject simple living and embrace strategic complexity? Let me give you the blueprint, not theory, not philosophy. Practical steps that separate people who build power from people who shrink from it. Step 1. Audit your simplicity. Look at your life right now. Where have you simplified in ways that limit you? Where have you cut back on ambition and called it contentment? Where have you reduced your options and called it focus? Be honest, write it down, because you can't fix what you won't acknowledge. And most people who've embraced simple living have simplified away their own power without realizing it. Did you turn down opportunities because they were too complicated? Did you avoid building skills because they were too much effort? Did you shrink your network because people were too demanding? Did you stay in a comfortable income bracket because more would be too stressful? These are all choices you made, and every one of them made you weaker. Every one of them reduced your options. Every one of them moved you closer to irrelevance. Step 2. Rebuild strategic complexity. Start with income. What's one additional income stream you could build in the next 12 months? Not a second job, an asset, an investment, a side business, a product, something that generates money without requiring linear time. Start small. It doesn't have to replace your primary income, it just has to exist. Because once you have 2 income streams instead of 1, you've reduced your vulnerability by 50%. That's math, that's not stress, that's strategy. Then move to influence. Who should be in your network that isn't? What events should you be attending? What relationships should you be building? And I don't mean deep friendships, I mean strategic relationships. People who operate at a higher level than you. People in adjacent industries. People with skills and resources you don't have. Build those connections, not because you're using people, because you're creating a web of mutual value that everyone benefits from. That's how power works. Not through isolation, through connection. Then tackle capability. What's one skill that would make you irreplaceable in your field? What's one competency that would put you at an intersection nobody else occupies? Learn it, not casually, not as a hobby, as a strategic investment in your own value. Because the moment you can do something that requires 2 rare skills, you've just made yourself exponentially more valuable than someone who can only do 1. Step 3. Tolerate the discomfort. Because here's what nobody tells you. Building strategic complexity is uncomfortable. It's more complicated than simple living. It requires more effort, more learning, more risk, more possibility of failure, and your brain will try to pull you back to simplicity. It'll tell you you're overwhelmed. It'll tell you it's not worth it. It'll tell you to just be content with enough. Don't listen. That voice is the voice of fear. That voice is what keeps people small. That voice is what makes people irrelevant. Push through the discomfort, because on the other side of complexity is power. On the other side of effort is leverage. On the other side of risk is reward that simple people will never experience. And here's the truth that simple living advocates will never tell you: the discomfort doesn't last forever. Yes, building these systems is hard. Yes, learning these skills is effort. Yes, expanding your network is uncomfortable. But once built, once learned, once established, it becomes your new baseline. It becomes the foundation that everything else builds on. And from that foundation, you can do things simple people can't even imagine. You want to know why the wealthy get wealthier? It's not luck, it's not privilege. It's because they built complex systems early that now compound automatically. They have income streams that generate wealth while they sleep. They have networks that create opportunities without them asking. They have skills that let them operate at intersections others can't reach. And all of that started with someone willing to be uncomfortable. Someone willing to complicate their life strategically instead of simplifying it obediently. Now let me address the elephant in the room. Some of you are thinking, but what about balance? What about mental health? What about not burning out? And these are valid questions. But here's what you need to understand. Strategic complexity doesn't mean doing everything. It means doing the right things in ways that multiply your effectiveness. The people who burn out aren't the ones with complex systems. They're the ones with chaotic systems. They're the ones saying yes to everything without strategy. They're the ones busy without being productive. That's different. That's not what I'm advocating. I'm advocating for building systems that create leverage, systems that work without you, relationships that add value without constant maintenance, skills that multiply your capabilities without multiplying your hours. This is the difference between simple living advocates and strategically complex operators. Simple living people think the only way to avoid stress is to do less. So they keep cutting, keep simplifying, keep shrinking, until there's nothing left. Strategic people understand that the way to avoid stress is to build better systems. Systems that handle complexity automatically. Systems that turn complications into advantages. Systems that make difficult things manageable. Think about it. Who's more stressed? The person with one income stream who's one layoff away from disaster, or the person with 5 income streams where losing one doesn't even register? Who's more stressed? The person with a tiny network who has nobody to call when they need help, or the person with a robust network where help is always available? Who's more stressed? The person with one narrow skill who's terrified of becoming obsolete, or the person with multiple competencies who can pivot to whatever the market needs? The strategic person isn't more stressed. They're more secure. They have options. They have leverage. They have power. And power, real power, doesn't create stress. It eliminates it. Because when you have power, when you have options, when you have leverage, you're not at the mercy of circumstances. You're not hoping things work out. You're not dependent on other people's decisions. You're in control. And control is the opposite of stress. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote about fortune. He said fortune is like a river. When it floods, it destroys everything in its path unless you've built dams and channels to control it. Simple living is standing in the river and hoping it doesn't flood. Strategic complexity is building the infrastructure that controls the river, regardless of what it does. One is hope, the other is power. And hope is not a strategy. So here's your choice. you can continue down the path of simple living. You can keep decluttering your ambitions, downsizing your dreams, and making yourself small, and you'll be comfortable for a while. Until the world changes in a way you didn't prepare for. Until the one thing you relied on disappears. Until you realize you've made yourself so simple that you're completely powerless to affect your own outcomes. Or you can choose strategic complexity. You can start building income streams that protect you, networks that empower you, skills that make you irreplaceable, systems that work while you sleep. And yes, it'll be uncomfortable. Yes, it'll require effort. Yes, it'll be more complicated than the simple life. But it'll also make you powerful. It'll give you options. It'll give you leverage. It'll give you the kind of security that simple living promises but never delivers. And here's the final truth. You can't serve two masters. You can't be strategically complex and comfortably simple at the same time. You have to choose. Do you want to be comfortable, or do you want to be powerful? Do you want to be simple, or do you want to be significant? Do you want to disappear quietly, or do you want to leave a mark that lasts? Because the people who change the world, the people who build empires, the people who create legacies that outlive them, they're not simple. They never were. They're strategically complex. They're operating on levels that simple people can't even perceive. They're building while others are decluttering. They're expanding while others are contracting. They're complicating while others are simplifying. And the gap between those two groups, between the strategically complex and the obediently simple, that gap determines everything. Machiavelli understood this. He understood that princes aren't made through simplicity. They're made through strategic complexity, through understanding more than others, through seeing more moves ahead, through building more leverage, through having more options. And yes, that's harder. But hard is the barrier that keeps most people out. Hard is what creates the moat. Hard is what makes you rare, valuable, and powerful. So stop simplifying. Stop decluttering your ambition. Stop making yourself small and calling it wisdom. Start building. Start complicating strategically. Start expanding your capabilities, your income, your influence. Start becoming someone who can't be ignored, can't be replaced, can't be forgotten. Because that's what the world rewards. Not simplicity, power, not contentment, impact, not smallness, significance. If you're ready to reject the simple living lie and start building strategic complexity, subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel is for people who refuse to make themselves small. Drop a comment telling me which domain you're tackling first: income, influence, or capability. And share this with someone who's been sold the simple living narrative and needs to wake up before they simplify themselves into complete irrelevance. The choice is yours, but understand, not choosing is a choice. Staying simple is a choice. And every day you spend in simplicity is a day someone else is building the complexity that will make them powerful while you fade into irrelevance. Don't let that be your story. Don't let the simple life be the reason you never mattered. Build complexity, build power, build something that lasts. Because the world doesn't remember the simple, it remembers the significant. And significance requires complexity that most people are too scared to build. Be the exception.